Welcome to the July edition of North St. Paul Notes. I'm your host, Paul Anderson. Coming up in the next half hour, we're going to talk with City Manager Jason Ziemer and Mayor Mike Kuehn. Stay tuned. North St. Paul Notes is straight ahead. Hello and welcome to the July edition of North St. Paul Notes. We hope this show will keep you up to date on the news and events that are of interest to the residents of North St. Paul. There's always so much going on in our city that I thought it would be a good idea to invite City Manager Jason Ziemer and Mayor Mike Kuehn on the show today to keep us up to date on a variety of topics. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
We haven't had the two of you on. I don't know if we ever
I don't recall.
I don't think.
Be our first
I don't
time.
think so. But in fact, the mayor hasn't been on for a number of
It's been a while.
years now.
I
So
was always waiting for this invite. And it finally
I know
came.
it. You know, I don't have control of all of that, so it's somebody else. I won't say who. But, when I think about North St. Paul, as you know, I always think about the history too. And one of the things I was always wondering is why North St. Paul became a city instead of a village. And I still refer to it as, and my wife does too, that I'm going downtown and to the village. And it's an old habit that we always had when we were growing up. So I don't know if either of you know what changed.
The only thing I can think of, Paul, I think it was state law required for some reason villages to be called cities. I think it's just for some uniformity. And I think that was in the middle 70s sometime that happened. But I know like a city like Birchwood wanted to attain their village identity. So they're known as the city of Birchwood Village. So maybe we should do the city of North St. Paul Village.
Well, it always seemed like an appropriate term to use with North St. Paul because it is a smaller city. Or village.
There are a number of cities that you do see that still refer to themselves as villages because that's what they were known as.
Sure, yeah.
Years ago, so.
So it was a long history of using that term.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, I remember, Mayor, when you came into office, one of your favorite topics was economic development, and that's how we ended up with getting a economic development commission.
Right.
And how has that been going? And I guess maybe you can just give us an update on what has been happening.
Sure. Well, I think our Economic Development Commission has been, I think, a real good asset because it's a group of residents that help us focus on, you know, the future business development and business retention in the city. And I think that we need to have some focus on that because that's a big challenge for our city. And it's also important, I think, for our tax base. I mean, we need to be able to grow the types of commercial industrial properties which will grow our tax base, which will allow the city to maintain a reasonable property tax base as well, the more development we can attract. And I think it's also just important for the downtown atmosphere. Obviously we want a downtown, which we have that we're proud of, that we want one that's vibrant and full of activity, not one that has empty storefronts and things like that. So I think the EDA has done a lot of good work. One of the things that they've done is recently worked with a national company that is an expert in attracting businesses, and they helped us do a lot of market profiling. You know, so many times you look at can we attract a business? Well, the first thing you talk about is traffic count in front of the business. Well, this company looks at like 250 different variables It shows you how much people know about us by, they know by age and credit card usage and types of interest just by looking at people's buying and trends and where they shop. So, that's another area that we've tried to use and also share that with our businesses of how you can attract that customer base, because the customer base is much bigger than the city. It's actually probably an area about 5 square miles around the city, which actually has about 110,000 people, not just the 11 or 12,000 that we have living within our city.
Okay.
So they've done great work. I'm really proud of the EDA.
There are some challenges connected with that, of course, and
yes.
Can you talk about those challenges? I know you've had experience with it now.
Sure.
So.
Well, I mean, to me,
Jason, feel free to chime in too.
He's doing a good job.
I don't want you to be cut out of the
exactly. I can get on a roll, as you know. But no, I think the challenges are, number one, we have kind of 3 distinct development areas in our town for businesses. One is the 36 and McKnight area. One is the old school bus garage area that now we call Commerce Park off of 120 and 36, and of course our long-standing downtown area. And they all bring various challenges to the table as far as how we can get additional development in those areas. But downtown, the biggest challenge is simply traffic count. Like to attract a Caribou coffee shop, for example, because everybody says, well, we go over to Oakdale on the corner there across from the Dairy Queen, we go to Caribou, everybody's in there, and they do a great business there. But Caribou, for example, as a corporate entity, looks at a site that has 30,000 cars going by it on a day just to start with as the vehicle count, even to get their attention. And I think our Main Street has something around 6,000 to 7,000 cars on 7th Avenue on a given day with traffic count. So there's a challenge there that we know that the corporate entities, the kind of chain restaurants and coffee shops and stores, really don't have a strong interest because of just the visibility they get in the downtown. And so I think our challenge in the downtown area becomes trying to attract these niche industries and smaller family-based businesses into the downtown, and that's also obviously a greater risk for people. So it's harder to find people that have an interest in starting a business, because obviously startups are very risky and they don't always succeed. So I think that's a challenge there, and I think 36 and McKnight and 120 becomes issues of access and road patterns and traffic patterns, and also land costs. Land costs tend to be more expensive along the highway because it just, again, has more exposure. So those are some of the challenges I can foresee. I don't know if Jason...
Yeah, I think some of the things that people often look at is how come, what's the city doing to attract business, and how come no new businesses are moving to town, and why is that the case? I think those are the things that we try to understand with the national search firm, is to give us a better understanding of what North St. Paul is, and who it can be and who we can actually attract, and then from there we take that information and go out and talk to businesses. So it's not as if we're not talking to developers all the time. We try to talk to businesses all the time. People might hear that a business is expanding. Well, that's a perfect fit for North St. Paul. Well, you talk to that business, or we're not the area. Some of the things that we know is we have Woodbury on the one side, and we've got the Oakdale Mall, and those are 2 huge attractive places. So typically those are the places that businesses want to locate first.
Sure.
And once they've got a foothold kind of in the area, then they start looking at kind of the second or third markets that can continue to support what they're trying to do. So, when I first started with the city, one of the people would say, well, we really want to have a Trader Joe's in the community. And one of the things the first thing that this market study did, we got a list of businesses that said, here's kind of who fits your profile. I went down the list, Trader Joe's wasn't on it.
It wasn't.
And so it was interesting. And so now what you do is you still might want to contact them because there might be an interest, but to give an idea of who are the businesses that are best fit from the business perspective into North St. Paul, we use that as an opportunity then to reach out to those businesses that are most likely to locate in North St. Paul. It's not an easy thing. North St. Paul is a fully developed community. The downtown's still fully developed. Yes, we do have some vacant lots down there, but the cost to come in and build what you need to build and do those sorts of things is a lot more expensive in a North St. Paul than it is in a Woodbury that has the cornfields and a lot of the vacant lots.
Sure.
And so we're trying to do those things on a regular basis, and meeting with businesses and even developers. And a couple of the updates we have is the Commerce Park site, or the area on the east end of town by kind of 36 and Highway 120 that we referred to as Commerce Park, which is the old bus garage site. We're actually working with a developer right now that's looking at developing about 300 housing units, market rate apartment units on that end of town. So we're working with them on both housing and a commercial project out there. We're also in the conversations with the developer on kind of 2 different possible projects on the old Anchor Block site out there, and we met with them probably about a month ago for getting an update on where they're at with that. So they're looking at a large-scale development, but if you look at that site is pretty narrow. It's probably about 20 acres total when you factor everything that Anchor Block owned previously, but it's narrow, so to get any sort of a business, whether it's big box or medium box or any of those sorts of other businesses, it's kind of constrained by just that width of that whole overall site. So there are things that, yes, we do have vacant lots in town, but they don't always work for different reasons, whether it's traffic access, whether it's site constraints. We have the 2 vacant lots in downtown that may not necessarily be the right point for some businesses to locate, because they might want to be out on 36, but now is there the space out there for them to locate?
Yeah.
So there are a lot of challenges and things that staff and the council and the EDA are trying to constantly balance on a regular basis. And it's definitely not for lack of effort, but I know you don't always get an A for effort on a lot of these sorts of things, because people would like to see things happen. And when are things going to happen? When are new businesses going to come to town? And it's a challenge, but it's certainly something that we're up to and we're trying to tackle.
It's good, because I'm glad you're mentioning all of these things, because I hear all the time, well, what's happening? Why isn't there more business in town? And those are good explanations, I think, for that.
I think another example with the Commerce Park, I mean, the developer that's working up there, I mean, one of the first big challenges is to assemble the land, because there's multiple owners up there, and to find who might be interested in selling, and then trying to find a price that works for the developer to do the project. And that's a big challenge, I think, as we move forward too. I think I always like to use the example that, for every one idea that may come forward from someone expressing an interest in doing something in the downtown or community, any place in the community for economic development, for every 100 ideas, 1 may happen. I mean, that's not unusual for many cities, because it's a long process that involves a lot of stuff, not the least of which is the financing that goes into it for the private developer.
Well, another topic that ties in with that, I think, is the downtown revitalization program, and that's another concern of a lot of people, and I'm sure that you get a lot of feedback from people, and not always positive, but the negative part comes out perhaps more often. There's been discussion, I know there's a program, but and there was a survey that was taken, and I don't know, what kind of response did you have on the survey?
Sure, we had a good response. I think we had nearly 300 people either online or in City Hall to give us was a visual preference survey of a number of different entities. If we move forward with improving the downtown, what are the types of interest, including things like gathering places, and even the type of sidewalk materials and street lighting and those types of things. What visually would people prefer? And I thought we had really good feedback, and I think probably 70% or more were actual residents or members of the business community that gave the feedback. A few were just other interested people who live nearby that come into the town that gave us some feedback too. So
I know there was a tour to other areas.
Yes.
That some people took. It was to just view other towns and what they have done.
Some redevelopment.
Right. Was that positive experience?
Yeah, I think the people that did participate in the tour, the council started this conversation on the downtown kind of revitalization, and what's really from a future perspective, what's the future look like, what's the future hold. Downtown is really kind of the what everybody knows North St. Paul is. I mean, the snowman, the car show, and downtown are really kind of the 3 big things that people are aware of when it comes to North St. Paul, because everybody comes downtown to the car show. And so how do we take a destination place, if you will, and kind of revitalize it, put some energy and money and effort back into it, so that it is the future of the community, and that also might help to attract business down there. And so we've been at this conversation. We started it in April of 2015. As part of that, we did a bus tour of downtown Anoka and downtown Osseo. We were planning on doing downtown Hopkins as well, but we ran out of time that day to do that. But I think everybody got a lot of interesting feedback, and the idea was to be able to kind of experience on the street what other cities have done successfully. And granted, not every city is the same, but it's the idea of what have they done, what did they do that was successful, and what possibly could even be related back to North St. Paul. They also did do a walking tour as part of that of downtown North St. Paul to get a feel for what does it have, what does it currently offer, where are some of the opportunities that we could make improvements, and what do we currently like today that we want to make sure is preserved long term.
And what are some of the weaknesses in
what are some
the
of the
downtown area?
weaknesses?
Yeah.
I think most people agree that North St. We did the community survey, and most people felt that downtown was in good condition, but any improvement was a good improvement. So anything that we can do to try and help stabilize it, or even dress it up a little bit, and address some of the issues that we know that are down there, whether it's the street condition and the sidewalk conditions, providing places for people to be able to congregate. We hear a lot of helping to continue to make it a family-friendly sort of an environment for people to be able to come down there. So what are the places that will be attractive to families in addition to people that want to come down to the car show on Friday night, those types of things. So.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we continue to look at the city, how it's changed. I mean, as we know, and as Paul and I know, we can drive them down the main street. Well, there's Ben Franklin, there's Harry's, there's Miller's Shoes.
Yeah.
I mean, but we know it's changing and has changed dramatically.
Sure.
We know that we really can't go back to those days that a lot of us think were maybe the good old days, and some of us think it'd be nice if it was that way again, because we have fond memories, but it isn't going to happen. And to me, with the downtown, it's been about 50 years since we've done any real significant changes in the downtown. And to me, the only thing I want to make sure is that doing nothing's not an option. I think we need to move forward and also work with businesses in terms of their building improvements as well, if opportunities arise for them, that we keep the downtown stable and looking good, because I think that continues to attract more interest in the downtown. And the other thing is, it's no longer just, as it was for many years, a retail destination. It still has some retail, but it's very limited. And it's kind of niche retail, like La Garage and now Love Chocolates and places like that, where people will drive a distance to come because it's something that's unique.
Sure.
But as far as going back to the real retail base, I think it's not in the cards. And I think what we need to look at is for the downtown is making it more of a destination place, not for necessarily shopping, though that's part of it, but kind of an activity center where people can come for taking care of their businesses. Obviously we have the government offices, City Hall, we have the post office, we have a lot of service industries and things like that. But people also, we want them to come and just take a stroll in the downtown, sit and relax and kind of watch the world go by. So we need to look at changing that feel for the downtown and make it more of an activity center rather than a retail center.
Right.
The thing to add on to that is it going to cost money to do some of the things that's being looked at? Certainly it's going to cost money, but it's also a lifetime investment in the community. And I think the aspect that the council's been focusing on the downtown piece is we want to try to minimize impacts, but we also know that long term we're trying to do this from a long-term perspective that's really going to make downtown a place that the community is proud about and brings people back down there, whether it's shopping, just to hang out, or to participate in a community event, those types of things, to really make it that destination location.
Well, I think we're trying to cover a number of topics today, so as I predicted, we might get stuck in one area.
Well, it's an important issue, economic development.
It is, for sure. Another topic that we wanted to discuss was the housing, the city housing, and how to improve it, and I know that some things have been done. The student-built housing is one thing that happened a few years ago and has been a very positive, I think, addition to the program. And I know that when you say student housing, some people might question, well, what kind of house is that? But I think it's been very well run, and we've had the director of that program on a couple of times at least, and so he really has it together as far as operating that program. And there is right now, currently, a house that was completed, and it's for sale.
Right.
Two
on the market.
Two on the market.
Last year's home that was completed about a year ago.
Oh, okay.
Actually, it was not till last fall that it was
the
completed.
one up in Colby
That's the
Hill?
one on 6th Street, across from Webster School on 6th Street.
Okay.
And then the students just completed one, and it's just going to be going on the market probably this week yet, and that's a one on 14th Avenue, about a half a block west of Tower Park.
Are we talking about a price yet?
I think we've set a price just the other night by our HRA of asking price of $264,900
Okay.
for that home, and the one on 6th Street is $299,900, and that's based on the fact of appraisals. Actually, those are both under the appraisal costs.
Okay.
And because we'd like to, obviously, the idea of the student-built homes are not to necessarily make money, but
Right.
we certainly would like to get our return on the investment. And you know, we're really proud of the program. There's, I think, 7 homes that have now been built, scheduled to move ahead this fall with another one.
Good.
And then we continue to look for single lots scattered around the town that
Sure.
might be available, or a home that's in bad condition that maybe we can reach a purchase agreement with the owner of, and continue to provide this program. It's worked really well.
Yeah, I think the element behind that program, and then the HRA also instituted a couple other like loan programs and emergency repair programs for the community. Is, you know, what is it, 80 to 90% of the community is residential. So some people might refer to it as a bedroom community with some retail and some other service type of industry. But knowing that that large of our community is mostly residential, whether it's single family or apartment units or other multifamily type of dwellings, the council understands and the HRA understands that we have to be able to put money into that to keep the home property values up. Because if you recall, when the recession went through and home values plummeted, when you don't have a lot of retail base, everything shifts to the homes in terms of that tax base, or that tax cost, if you will, to the property owner. So the ability of stabilizing property values and home property values throughout the community is very important. So the idea behind the student-built home program was to not only kind of fill in some vacant lots, but also to remove some blighted properties throughout the community, but also trying to help stabilize neighborhood values, property values of those individual properties. And it's the same thing with some of this revolving loan program that the HRA's put in place as well, is to assist property owners with making some improvements to their home to, again, help them increase the value of the home, stabilize the value of the home, and or if it's somebody that's looking to even sell, is to put money back in that might be attractive to younger families, or keep current families in the community for a longer period of time as well. So,
You know, I can't emphasize, I think, enough the importance of good housing stock in the neighborhood. And we have a lot of positives. We have a lot of unique housing. We have a lot of affordable housing. And we have a lot of housing that has been long-term maintained. And I think that's attracting younger families into the community. Our location close to both the 2 downtowns, I think, also has an appeal. And that's where I think these programs can also assist people make those additional improvements that they might want to make in their home, that there's a low interest loan program out there that they might be the fit for. We've contracted with the Greater Metropolitan Housing Association, or Housing Corporation to work with our residents, and they can even provide different information for them on how to do, you know, do-it-yourself projects and other things as well. And they're I think another stable thing that we have that in the community that's there as a resource. And we see a lot of interest now not going farther out. That trend is kind of changing, that 2.5 acre lot farther out, making the commute. We're seeing a lot more interest in living closer in, as we see even in the 2 downtowns, Minneapolis, St. Paul, that there's a lot more interest in living closer in. And that ties back to economic development, because also these young families are looking for places where they can take a walk with the family and get a cup of coffee and sit, or walk downtown to the local cafe and have Saturday morning breakfast with their family. And that's kind of the connection with that. It's really important that we try to connect those links. So we have a lot of positives. It's just making sure that the dilapidated properties that are scattered around the town, and some of these opportunities to kind of, fix those or remove those and move forward to add more stability is really important. So.
Well, moving along, there are some loan programs that we won't discuss
People
in
can
any detail.
contact City Hall if they want information and find out what they're about.
That's probably the best thing to do, is to get the details from City Hall.
if it's not a program that they would qualify for through the city, through the loan programs, we've got aging in place program for seniors. We've got the revolving loan program, and then we also have an emergency repair program for people of certain income levels. If they don't qualify for that, working through Greater Metropolitan Housing Corporation, The GMHC may also be able to identify other programs that are offered through the state or county that they might qualify for as well.
I think these are all positives that we wanted to at least mention. So there's also a program and a committee for wayfinding. Wayfinding maybe makes people wonder, well, what wayfinding, what is that? But maybe you can just discuss that briefly.
Yeah, so it's a very technical term, but basically it's, the loose definition is it's a bunch of signs around town that help provide some navigation to people when they come in the community. So, so there was a committee that was formed. This was part of our strategic plan to look at helping people to navigate. So how do they find wherever they want to go in the community? So in other words, once they're off Highway 36 and they're in town, how do they get to downtown? How do they get to a park? How do they get to different churches or school, those sorts of things? So this committee had spent about 6, 7, 8 months kind of putting together kind of a plan, which was recommended to the city council, which the council now has had a couple of workshops on. But it includes things such as entrance signs into the community, monument signs that welcome people to town, monument signs that have reader boards on them to help people, once you're in town and you're at certain locations, you might be able to see, there's an event coming up, to be able to announce some different things that are going on in the community. So it's not just directional signage to tell people how to navigate through town. But most of those navigation signs, you see them in a lot of different communities. It's becoming more popular, where you'll see a sign up that's got an arrow that says, City Hall is straight ahead or downtown is straight ahead. Once you're in downtown, then it tells you where the different businesses are located in the downtown area. A lot of those signs are really more intended for pedestrian and bicycle usage. And if you look at the city's Living Streets plan as an example, the goal, or even the goal of the city's strategic plan, is to have a more walkable, livable, active, healthier sort of community. And so those are the types of things, if you look at the overall big picture, this just fits into the desire to have more bike and trail connections to recreational areas, connecting homes to businesses, those sorts of things. And for people to recognize that even though we're about 3 square miles, you're actually not too far from being able to get to where you need to be, and you don't always have to use your car. And we're also in conversations on the wayfinding piece about conversations with MnDOT. A lot of concerns and criticisms that when Highway 36 was put in, there was no signage to tell people how to get to downtown. So we're revisiting that issue with MnDOT right now. We're putting together a plan to take to MnDOT to be able to say, as you're traveling on 36, exit here for downtown North St. Paul as an example. So we're working with them on signage to help people to understand once you get off, or where to get off to exit to get into downtown or get into the community, what exits to use. And once you're there, then we're hoping to use the signage that's proposed by the city to then direct people, here's how you get, here's how to get where you need to get to.
That should be a positive addition. You mentioned Living Streets, and we only have about a minute and a half left, so we're running out of time. I thought about this when we were getting ready to do this program, and I thought, this should probably be expanded to an hour.
We're happy to come back sometime.
Yeah, we'll have to cover some of these things another time. You had mentioned Living Streets. I know there's a program that's going to be on Margaret Street, and that is for a bike path, as I understand. So,
with Jason, he knows the details.
Yeah, there are 2 demonstration projects. The purpose of those is really, the city's had a number of chances to put the Living Streets plan into place, and I think there's a lot of concern of what that means. There's concern with the neighborhoods about new sidewalks and people that aren't accustomed to having these sorts of things. So on an existing street, as an example. So for example, on 19th Avenue with that street project this year, there was a sidewalk in that was taken out, and I think people had some misunderstandings about what that was intended to be and accomplish. And so the council has decided to do a couple demonstration projects to test the Living Streets plan and also give people an idea of how it works. Is this really going to be an impact? And we're also changing some behaviors of people that are used to parking on the street or driving. We're not eliminating parking on Margaret as an example. We're just kind of changing how the road functions a little bit.
And it's going to be a little more limited, I guess.
Right, and we're looking for feedback when the demonstration's over. Margaret will run from July through September.
I'm sure you'll get it.
I'm sure we will.
Well, we are actually out of time, and we haven't covered all the topics that we were going to cover, but I appreciate what you've told us, and I think that those listeners and viewers will appreciate it too. Sometimes wonder how many viewers we have, and it'd be fun to find out.
Well,
but I think
you always hear comments.
We do get feedback, so that's good. But it's difficult sometimes to know exactly. So I I guess I appreciate both of you coming on. We've been talking to Jason Ziemer, City Manager, and Mayor Mike Kuehn. We're out of time on this month's show. Join us again next month when we'll bring you more news about North St. Paul. I'm Paul Anderson, speaking for everyone at the City of North St. Paul. Thank you for watching.